All right, guys, pay attention. I'm not gonna lie at all. You might hear the baby singing in the background. They're playing right now. Hey, babe. Yeah. I have to take the Escalade to work again, but this time I got to keep it for like 2 days at the shop.
2 more days?
Yeah. You know how I did the undercoating?
Yeah.
I found a couple little things, nothing major, but I got to do like spark plugs, clean the intake valves, stuff you don't care about, other maintenance stuff, and stuff to, you know, for performance. Not lying.
Yeah, and it's gonna fix it.
Cool. I'll put the baby seats in the other car. Like 2 days we should be good. All right, cool.
Thank you.
I did not lie. I didn't lie.
Hey guys, welcome back to LegitStreetCars, and welcome to I secretly supercharged my wife's Escalade in 2 days. If you guys were around for the last Escalade video, the reveal video, then you know that we bought the truck. It's a beautiful Escalade, and we brought it back to Legit Street Quarters to do some maintenance work, and I ended that video by undercoating everything. So my wife has seen the truck, she's driven it, she loves it, but at this point she knows, well, exactly what you just saw. She knows that I've undercoated it and that it needs a little bit more work. But what I forgot to mention is that one of the things that's going to increase the performance of this truck is a massive supercharger that's going to raise the horsepower of this engine to 640. Did I mention that this is a daily driver for my wife and our kids? I've had this blower from Magnuson for over 4 months. It was originally supposed to go on my old gray Escalade that was totaled, and I've hid it here in my nasty shop bathroom that we never use. It's kind of turned into a storage unit because I knew my wife would probably never step foot in here. All right, guys, so in this video, we're going from start to finish. We're gonna install the entire kit. We're gonna do silly stuff. It's gonna be a lot of fun, but first, we have to head over to the dyno. I wanna get a baseline on the truck so we have a good before and after. And after we get back from the dyno, I'll take everything out and put it on a table. I've been like a kid on Christmas morning every day for like 4 months. I'm dying to see what all of this looks like. So with that, let's go to the dyno. All right, here we go. Stock dyno run. We're at Fluid Motor Union in Naperville, Illinois. And OJ is an absolute beast at getting vehicles on the dyno. I have no idea how he did this. There was like a 1/4 of an inch of space to back it in, but he did it. And here we have the Escalade untouched. Look at this. This is crazy. In the dyno room. All right, OJ, 420 horse from the factory. We were able to put it in 2-wheel drive. It's got a little selector switch that my 05 Escalade did not have, so that's nice. What do you think? What's it gonna put down?
20% drivetrain loss on our dyno. Probably puts it somewhere around 320, I'd say.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too. 320, 325.
On our heartbreaker. So
yeah, that'd be pretty healthy.
They read low.
So originally we were gonna do this all-wheel drive, but the dyno, it does adjust. It does move back and forth, but the ESV is just too long, so we can't get the front wheels on there. So we're just going rear-wheel drive only. All right, so we have StabiliTrak off. We're ready to rock. Let's do this. Where are we at, Donnie?
That was 292.9.
292. Ugh. That's weak.
Just the first one, though.
All right, all right.
So basically we're gonna see if it likes more runs. So the next run either it'll go up or it'll go down. Obviously,
I'm
right?
shooting for up here. I'm shooting for up. You know what's gonna make it go up, OJ? A gigantic supercharger. That's what's gonna make it go up.
I mean, you're not wrong on that.
All right, so I drove the Escalade about 40 miles here, so it was probably pretty heat soaked, so we just put the fans on it for about 20 minutes, and we're gonna see what she can do. So this 315 horsepower number was from a 2017 Escalade that they dyno, totally stock, but it had way less miles. All right, we're gonna run it one more time. It's been cooling down for about 15-20 minutes again, so we'll see what happens here. See if we can break the 300 mark. I think it'll do it. Sometimes with this dyno, We run it a few times and our higher numbers are later in the day after a few cool downs. All right, we did it. It was 301 on that first one, then 293 on the one after, so you can see heat soaked again. But yeah, so basically 302. We got to protect this diamond white paint. It's very expensive, kind of hard to match. So we're just putting the tape right at the seam like that. I know everybody's going to be excited to just get their kit on and go do smoky burnouts, but don't skip stuff like this. You're going to regret it if you end up scratching your fender or something like that. It'll cost you a lot of money. So. There's more. We've removed like 19 screws and there's even more. There we go. Oh, there we go. Sounded good. All right, that's okay. Sounded a little funky there. Hopefully we can do this with all the clips intact. I've had these wheels for my 335i for over a year, and I haven't ordered tires for them yet. And now they're serving as my Cadillac bumper horse. That works, right? So I made little marks where this hood latch goes because we have to remove this and we want it to go back in the exact same position. And look at the very specific position this is in, by the way. You can see here, this part goes a little bit over the bracket. This one's way under the bracket. This one's over to the side, up on an angle. Very weird. And then anytime I remove something and we can just put the bolts right back, we're definitely doing that because we're gonna have to keep track of a lot of hardware during this project. And now we're just gonna kind of put this off to the side. Just removed 14 10mm bolts that hold this louver assembly in. So this has an active radiator cover. So these will open when the radiator needs airflow and stay closed when it doesn't. You'll see semi trucks using cardboard to accomplish the exact same thing. And that way you can get up to operating temperatures just a little bit quicker. So having those active louvers is really nice because it protects the condenser from damage from rocks and bugs. And this looks really good for 81,000 miles, although, as you can imagine, we still have a few critters. So for now, we're done in the front end, and we need to get to the engine. This intake manifold's gotta come off. And of course, that starts with a beauty cover. There we go. All right, loosen up our throttle body clamp. That comes out. I have disconnected everything around the intake manifold. So all the connectors, all the various hoses and whatnot, it's all very self-explanatory. Basically, anything that's attached to this guy, we need to remove. So at this point, we can take a 10 mil and you can leave this secondary beauty cover, if you will, but you can leave that there and then you can fit your socket right through the little hole there. And there are a few 10mm all the way around, and then this guy should lift out. And there's hardly any torque on these plastic intake manifolds, so real nice and easy. All right, so we got all 10mm bolts. There we go. Popped out nice and easy. And now we just have to get to some connectors on the back. You gotta be really careful because the bolts stay with the manifold. We don't want to scratch the cylinder head, but we need to move this forward so I can get to those. All right, guys, we're going in to check out these nasty intake valves. I'm gonna venture to say these have not been cleaned. This is pretty bad, and this definitely could be where some of the power loss is. Here's another one, the valve's slightly open. So not horrible. I've seen a lot of Euro DI cars, the earlier ones, that are way worse than this. So not horrible. And here's another one. You can see the glob right there. Oh, look at that. That's one of the foam things from the intake. So guys, even if you're not gonna do this cleaning, double check inside. You don't need a borescope to do this. You can just peek in with a flashlight. So we gotta get that. Man, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can fall in. So just be very careful. This is why we're gonna tape this off after the cleaning. But here's a clip from the back of the intake that easily could have fallen in. So really, anytime you have an intake manifold off, it's a good idea to double check the ports before you go back together. Got it. Don't want that going in the motor. Here's kind of a cool view with my normal camera. You can see this up close. Look at what builds up, 81,000 miles. It looks like some kind of weird alien planet, but we're gonna clean that up. And it starts with a little bit of some chemical. All right, so the first step in cleaning all of that nasty carbon off of our intake valves is to soak it in a chemical, and I like to use the CRC intake valve and turbo cleaner. So you can actually use this to spray right into your intake with the engine running to maintain this so it doesn't build up. Apparently no one did that. So we're gonna use this just to eat away at that carbon. It's pretty cool. So the first step we're gonna do is spray this right into any intake port with a closed valve. Very important, it has to be closed. So I've already checked this one's closed. We're gonna do one of these. Then after the smoke clears, you got something that looks like that. You can see that stuff kind of bubbling up in there and starting to dissolve all that carbon, all that gunk. This is kind of cool to see live in action right now. But yeah, we're gonna soak this for a couple of hours and then go in there with some picks. So I'm gonna go around and do all the other valves that are closed, and then after we clean these, we'll have to turn the engine over, close the remaining valves, and do those as well. All right, so we did that. Pull factory airbox. Next to the airbox location, you'll need to remove 2 push pins. Okay, and they show you the arrows. I mean, this is so detailed, so nice. All right, so we got these 2 little push clips right there, and then there are 3 bolts with a 10mm wrench. I got that. Let's do this. Okay, then we got some 10 mils. I have no idea what this is loosening up right now. What are we doing? Are we taking that whole, oh, we're taking that whole thing out, aren't we? We're gonna be taking this whole cross member out, I guess. Almost, there we go, we did it. No! I found one spot of rust on this truck. Look at that. This Florida truck is spotless underneath. You know what I'm gonna have to do here? Step 1, vacuum rust away. Step 2, wire brush rust. Step 3, get a little bit more aggressive. Step 4, clean it up. Step 5, protect the surrounding area with your grandma's pillowcases. We're using a floral design so we don't get any debris in the engine. And then step 6 is actually one step, or step 1, I don't know. Spray this on. And this is a rust converter. The can was super cold, it was outside. Normally it sprays a mist, but this will eventually turn black, so we'll check on that a little later. And we will also check on these valves because it's gonna turn into kind of a goopy soup that we're gonna be able to pick out, and I'll show you how clean we can get these intake valves for just a few dollars. This fan shroud is a total nightmare. There are 2 rivets on each side that you have to cut, but we got those out finally. They give you new rivets, of course, the little plastic guys. All right, we're just gonna put those guys right back. A lot of these bolts are starting to look exactly the same, so we don't wanna mess up the lengths. All right, so now in theory, this thing should come out, but it is tight. Oh, it's that guy. There we go. Instructions are so good. All right, next up we have an arts and crafts project. We have to cut out this template and drill a couple of holes. And I think after this, we're installing our first new parts. It's a good thing I paid attention in 3rd grade art. Actually, my 3rd grade art teacher might be disappointed with this guy. There we go. Escalade. The other side is the SUV template. So if you remember my last video, I called the Escalade a truck, and I explained to you why I call the Escalade a truck. According to Magnuson, it's not an SUV because this is for the Tahoes and stuff, which honestly are the exact same thing. I don't know why they're doing this. So just like that, we have our Escalade template. And so we're just gonna score the centers there so we can remove our paper and not destroy it. You never know. We might install another one of these and we can reuse the instructions. I don't know. Perfect. Look at that. X marks the spot. Can any of you guys see X? There we go. All right, we're about 4 hours in now, and we are about to install our first new parts. If I can do it live on camera, that would be really cool. Just like that. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm so funny. It looks kind of circly, right? Yeah. All right, second one. It's almost circly. There we go. All right, so next we have to cut out this little section here. So I just want to scribe this so we create a weak point and the plastic snaps where we want it to snap. Now from there, we can just use some side cutters for this or some tin snips, whatever you got. There we go. All right, so with that, we're going right back in with this. We're done with this piece. There we go, good, there we go. All right, so they give you these really nice brackets that go like this. And we have new hardware as well. This really is factory quality. I'm always impressed whenever I install one of these Magnusons. I did a Gen 1 CTS-V a long time ago before they came out with the Gen 2 with the factory supercharger. And this thing was faster than a Gen 2. It was nice. Only problem with those Gen 1 CTS-Vs, well, they had kind of a lot of problems with like fit and finish, no one liked the interior and stuff. The rear ends, like the worst factory rear ends ever, right up there with the factory 10 bolts in the F-bodies that we would all grenade after our first modification or just a sticky tire. Talking to you guys about F-bodies and blowing up rear ends, and I totally forgot a part. So before you install the brackets, you have to install these rubber grommets. That way they gently push up on the LTR and keep it secure. There we go. All right, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, yeah, that is more like it. So that is installed, looking pretty mean. And I am going to attempt to remove this carbon that's still pretty gummy. Not gonna lie, it's hard to hold the camera and do this at the same time, but I wanted to show you this in action. So you can use picks. I'm using this little seal remover right now. And really anything that you can get in here and just kind of scrape away. You can't really damage anything by scraping inside of the intake runner, so don't worry, it's not like you're inside of the cylinder. And again, just make sure that the valve is closed. If you get in here and this fluid is all gone just after a couple of hours, your valve was probably slightly open. Not the end of the world, but just wait to do that one until the valve is closed. So anyway, you guys see how dirty this is now? I'm gonna go clean everything up and then I'll show you what it looks like after. We can actually get to the spark plugs through the fender liner, so that's kind of nice. So I've made more complete videos on cleaning intake valves. I'll link them down below. One of them's on the old Escalade if you want to go down memory lane, but here is pretty much all the tools that I'm using. We have this little brush. I'm not putting it on a drill. I'm just doing it by hand. And we have this 90-degree pick, a regular screwdriver, and this little steel remover, can of brake clean, and this fluid extractor. So let me show you something real cool. So you can see here the intake runner is much cleaner because of the wire brush. And I have filled this with brake clean, and it's all black and gooey. And now I'm just gonna suck it out. All right, so we got the tube in there. So that way we got all the fluid out of there. We didn't have to use air to blow it out and make a big mess or anything like that. And we're getting pretty close. Now this isn't gonna be perfect like the picture of the clean valve on the can. That is a new valve. We're not gonna get this that shiny. It really doesn't matter. You can walnut shell blast these if you'd like, but I like to show this DIY method because you really can't mess this up. With walnut blasting, if you get any in the cylinders, you're in bad shape. I've done walnut blasting and it looks great, but we're just not making that big of a mess today. We're gonna do it this way and it's gonna be just fine. All right guys, so before this is what one of the valves looked like. Nasty, grimy, super carbony, and now we have this. Nice and clean. It's not chrome, it's not polished like you see on the can, but it doesn't have any chunks, it doesn't have any real buildup. This is perfect, and I'm sure after you drive one of these for just a few thousand miles, it starts to look a little darker like this. So anyway, you can see that we've cleaned up the intake runner as well, but the stem there and the valve doesn't have any more of that power robbing carbon, which I do believe was worth at least 10 horsepower on the dyno, especially considering that all of them were pretty gunked up. So, and these are the old plugs. These are factory AC Delco plugs. Not really in bad condition. I didn't look too deep into the service history to see if these have been replaced, but we are putting the exact same AC Delco, same part number spark plugs in. And I was surprised to know that the Magnuson kit doesn't call for a colder plug. They designed everything around the factory spark plugs. So I'm no stranger to boosted vehicles. I put colder spark plugs in my twin turbo CL65 AMG that has larger turbos and larger injectors. It's got to get tuned soon. I have two-step colder plugs in the 1,000 horsepower turbo Trans Am WS6. Yes, it has 1,000 crank horsepower. It did 902 in the dyno, and people are still like, it didn't do 1,000. And I'm like, well, it doesn't say 1 kW HP. So, and of course we have the 2002 Ford SVT Lightning, which I will be removing the engine from soon. We're gonna do some modification, and that's getting colder plugs. But I spoke with the team at Magnuson, and they said they designed the kit and the tune for a factory spark plug. So I could run a colder plug if I'd like, but the truck would be less efficient outside of boost. So ideally, you wanna run the hottest plug you can run without detonation. The idea behind a colder plug is to reduce the chances of detonation. So since this is gonna be daily driven and out of boost quite often, I don't wanna kill our phenomenal Escalade fuel mileage anymore. And I just want to run it exactly the way Magnuson had in mind. And this kit is designed for a 100% stock vehicle, stock exhaust, stock everything. And, you know, it produces gains of upwards of 200 crank horsepower. It's pretty crazy. All right, guys, it's day 2, which means we only have today to get this entire kit done before I surprise my wife with it tomorrow. So I have all of the valves cleaned, finished up the spark plug. So those are the 2 things that aren't really part of the kit that we had to knock out. And that took about 4 hours total of our time. Now we're gonna be removing and not reinstalling this little foam guy right here. Installing the bracket for the water pump, which is right here. So this is an electronic pump. It's very similar, probably the same. It's a Bosch than the one that's on my E55 and various other cars that have water-to-air intercooler systems. So this is going to pump the fluid through this guy and then through that guy. So this is a very compact design, but similar to an LSA car or any of the modern GM stuff that has a supercharger sitting right on top of the engine. The intercooler is right on top, so you can see our hoses go right here, and that's going to cool the intake charge because it's going to create a ton of heat when we're producing boost. I have to get to know where all of these hoses go. The first one in the instructions is this L-shaped hose here. And check it out, they give you a swivel 10mm socket. I'm not exactly sure what that's for yet, but kind of nice they give you that. They give you Loctite and everything. So you need basic hand tools, but they even give you some. Okay, so first hose is going through here. There we go. All right. Okay, then we're just gonna go ahead and install this clamp right here. All right. Perfect. All right, so next up we're installing the reservoir for the coolant for the intercooler system. So we removed the nuts for the master cylinder, and then all we have to do now is reinstall the nuts, and it'll hold the bracket in. So I just installed this bracket by removing these 2 nuts, and now we've relocated our studs along the fender, and those are gonna accommodate these guys. So we have a relay and a 15-amp fuse for the coolant pump. All right, so we're making a little notch right now to run this wire to this fuse. And I just want this recessed just a little bit so the cover can fit. So we're good right there. All right, then we just got to do the same thing for this positive terminal cover. All right, so then we have to attach this fuse to the wiring, and it just kind of slides in there like this. So this fits over the fuse perfectly. It's really nice. There we go. So it just takes a little bit more force to get this guy in there, but we definitely have a really good connection. Okay, so there's our fuse and relay, and then our harness goes this way over here, and one end is connected right under that little black cap for power, and then we just have a ground that runs back behind here. You can see the nut there. So everything looks pretty factory, and now we'll put our cover back on, and that's why we made the notch here, so the cover would fit properly. Okay, we're getting there. Page 38 of 65, supercharger idler installation. All right, go ahead and remove that belt. We're not going to be reusing it. We got a new one. All right, another part that's not going to be reused is this alternator bolt. I got some good used parts, people. Good used parts. Link down below. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to sell a bolt. All right, so I loosened up this alternator bolt here. We're not going to fully remove this, but it wants us to pry it out of the way for the supercharger install. That means we're getting close to my personal favorite part. I don't know about you guys, but installing the supercharger. All right, there we go. Move out of our way. Got stuff to install. And this guy is going right here. And we'll torque this guy to 25 foot-pounds. All right, so this bolt is going through the alternator bracket. We removed the one that was in there. All right, next up, we got to swap over the 90mm throttle body. So if you have the 5.3, you got to buy a throttle body. But if you have the 6.2, you can simply swap it. We're not going to be reusing this rubber seal. These are reusable, but we have a new one for this guy. So let's go ahead and pop this off. All right, what do we got going on here, Magnuson? Oh yeah, look where they drilled in, painted it green. Sweet. Magnuson, why is it green? Comment down below if you're watching this. All right, new throttle body is going on. They give you new hardware for this, so we'll add a little bit of blue Loctite. Cleaned out our throttle body. And this little guy goes on the bottom. All right, 10 mils are on. The next step you want to get is your biggest half-inch impact, your most powerful half-inch impact you can get. And we're just going to gently ram these things in here at about 400 foot-pounds. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I was kidding. Don't use a half-inch impact to tighten. 130 inch-pound bolts for your throttle body. You will destroy it. That was a joke. I did that once in one of my old Mercedes diesel videos, and people were so upset. They're like, what if someone stopped the video right before you said it was a joke? I'm like, they shouldn't be working on their cars. Shouldn't be working on their cars, period. Half inch, nowhere near a motor. All right, next up, we are installing our new intake seals. You can reuse these off of your old intake if you'd like. It really makes no difference. But for peace of mind, you can get new ones. So if you look in here, you can see the intercooler inside of that top lid. So the cold water and coolant mix is going to hit that intercooler, and it cools the air before it goes into the cylinders. All right, so I've cleaned up the mating surface on the cylinder head where the supercharger is going to rest. And now we are to install a little bit of lubricant on this surface here. And this is going to help our seals out. Let's make sure nothing gets stuck too. Let's go a little down. Oh, okay. And I'm excited too, but okay, so go down very slowly. Like a supercharger depended on it. Or a supercharging mating surface. Slow is fine. Yeah, definitely slow is good. Okay. Okay, yeah, like I'm good right now. Yeah, I think that's down. It's down. This is my wife's Escalade. I'm so stealing this all the time. I thought it'd be funny if we took the shroud out and it already had the holes. Like someone had taken the kit off the truck already. And then I'm like, another sign of the kit would be right here. So if you buy an Escalade or any GM truck and it's got these little lines here, well, I guess they could have just ripped the engine out because it blew up because the active fuel management shredded the cam and sent metal everywhere. It could have been that, or they could have installed a massive blower. There we go. Take it away. All right, let's go get some bolts and we'll get those started before we remove this, just in case we need to manipulate anything. Not that I could physically lift this right now, but I'd like to think I could. Loctite. Swivel 10 on an extension. Torque wrench. All right, supercharger is torqued down. Now we just have to reconnect all of the coil packs. Reinstall the coil pack covers. For this side, it really helps if you remove the oil filler cap. Duh. All right, I'm taking the yellow strap off here. I was gonna leave this on kind of like the Mopar guys leave that little yellow guard on the front bottom of the bumper on forever that comes with a car new, and then you just see them rolling around like that for 5 years. I was gonna do the same thing here, but I decided, you know, to not be like that. All right, so we have a bracket to install, kind of a nice looking piece, and it bolts onto the supercharger here. And it's got this side bolt here that mounts to our alternator bracket, the factory alternator bracket. All right, so we've installed this pulley here, and now it's time for the most important pulley of them all. All right, here we go. And I put some Loctite on these bolts, and they're just 4 little guys. 108 inch-pounds for these, so not a lot. All right, a strap wrench kind of helps in this situation, where you just got to be a man. Just hold that pulley. There we go. All right, we're on page 56 of 65. The belt is on. We finished up some wiring harness extensions. Actually, we have one more left to do for this coolant sensor here. But next up is the air box. So I did throw a new factory filter in there. Maybe one day I'll get a high flow filter. That's all they had in stock. This is so cool. This is too cool. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm getting a little nervous though. I don't know why. I'm just always nervous at the end of like a build. It isn't really like a build, but you know what I mean. Anytime you start an engine for the first time after you've rebuilt it or strapped a huge blower onto your family's vehicle that needs to be driven like 250 miles this weekend. We're driving quite a bit, and then next month we're driving like 2,000 miles. So yeah, hopefully this all works out. All right, guys, at this point, we could fire up this engine. We're actually on the last page, which is to bleed the intercooler system. So we're just gonna fill this up with regular antifreeze, Dexcool antifreeze. You don't need to do this, but this claims to reduce the temperature by up to like 25 degrees. It's kind of similar to like a water wetter product, if you guys remember that. So it's one of those like, why not? All right, yeah. Okay, and then I'm no good with aim, so we're using our massive funnel here. Not that many people do this, but if you're the type to sit there with your ignition on listening to the radio or whatever, you might want to consider the fact that there's a pump drawing a little bit of amperage. I'd rather have it on all the time. That's what I did with my E55 from the factory. It's not on all the time. And these pumps last basically forever, the Bosch factory one. So I just leave it running all the time. I think it's better for cooling. All right, so we just turned the ignition on and we got to fill. I think we're... Drink Escalade. And this is how you bleed it. You don't start the engine up. You turn the ignition to position 2, which we just learned on these push button trucks. You just got to hold it down for like 5 seconds. Now, if you were drag racing your Escalade, you replace this reservoir with a huge ice tank. I don't know if I'll be drag racing this thing anytime soon. Then again, I didn't think I'd be installing a supercharger on my wife's Escalade, but you never know. This could be the new race car. Well, look at that Bosch pump working. That's some pretty good flow right there. All right, Escalade. The doctor is in. Let's get this tune in here. So this is what they give you in the kit. It's an HB tuner, little OBD2 connector here. So I've already downloaded HB tuners on my computer. Actually, I already had HB tuners on here because I used HB tuners. Like I tuned my Trans Am, my 9-second Trans Am myself with HB tuners. So anyway, now we just got to follow the instructions, just like everything else. All right, so right now we need to save the factory tune file. So we're going to go to read. It says erasing. Please don't erase important stuff. So right now it's reading the file from the engine computer and the transmission computer, and we click do not read for the fuel system computer, and then it lists 2015 plus Camaro. So obviously that's not what this is. Okay, we're complete on the engine. Reading transmission. Oh, wow, that was just the engine we were doing right there. Okay, another couple minutes. All right, guys, we're putting the rest of the whole front end together, the bumper and the brackets and stuff you've already seen. The whole entire supercharger kit is done. So we've done this in 2 like 8-hour days. The problem is I didn't read all of the instructions all the way through. You should definitely do that because the first step is the tune. So you have to take the stock tune file, send it to Magnuson, and then within 24 hours, they send you the updated file. It's like being a kid that wakes up on Christmas Day, you run downstairs, you're all excited, and you realize it's actually Christmas Eve, or it's Christmas Day, and you get your new toy, but it doesn't come with batteries, and all the stores are closed on Christmas, so you can't get batteries. It's just like that times 5. All right, guys, it's the next day, and we're zipping the tune in right now, so it's really easy. You just send Magnuson your factory file, and then they email you back really quick, actually, the new file. So this is going in right now. It's rewriting the entire program, and you're ready to go in a few minutes. All right, everything looks great. It sounds perfect. You definitely cannot hear anything at idle. It sounds like a totally stock Escalade. I'm gonna let it warm up. We'll check everything over and then we're going for a rip.